I remember just being like my brain just like exploding open when she handed me what book was it? It was a Karen Pryor book. It wasn't Don't Shoot Your Dog, but I think it might have been. But either way, it was one of Karen Pryor's books, and it was all about like operant learn or like yeah, learning theory, learning about different ways that animals learn. And I was like, wait, what? Wait, all the things that I knew about leadership and dominance and horses is wrong. And yeah, it was just like this huge awakening for me. And I had to go back to that ranch and throughout that year just feel so confused. Like
Mhm.
I just remember feeling so like I'm doing one thing but learning and thinking another. Like there was that huge disconnect there and I was just
Yeah.
feeling I had a lot more turmoil and anxiety in my life at that point and I was just not yeah, it was a lot all at once. And eventually um yeah, my horse Merlin really he was Mo at the time.
Yeah.
He was the one that really like honed in all the lessons that I was learning in theory. He was making me see them in real life.
Mhm.
So, though I didn't have anyone to bounce this off of really, because I felt like it was just such a messy internal process, he was just showing me in real time like what it meant to be in my body and what it meant to have a horse react to internal emotions, you know?
So amazing. And horses, I always find that like they're one of the animals that has like truly like a sixth sense and are able to read every emotion inside of you. And I think that there's an extra connection too, especially when you're riding one that um you know that that they really recognize every emotion that you're having, and when they tell you to be calm, they feel everything like that. So every time somebody tells me they're like, "Oh, well, this horse went crazy," and I could just tell that like they were probably very nervous or, something like that. Like my mom had a very scary honeymoon experience, but like she's not a great rider. So, she's probably more scared of horses and like has learned to love them through me. Um but that inner connection, I think, is in your inner feelings, and the fact that horses are so intuitive is one of my favorite things about them. In that did they in that ranch that you were working at, were they doing different techniques that were different to what you were learning? Is that what you were kind of?
Yeah, so I mean, because we were doing stuff with trail riding and, we were taking people from beginners and on long trail rides and stuff, it just made me think about like the horse's perspective of that, you know?
Yeah.
And and it was still quite early on, so I wasn't so deep in my unconditioning yet, so I could still do it. Um, but it was just more so realizing how much we expect from horses and take from them, and eventually when we only applaud them when they're submissive, you know? Like a horse is only good when it's submitting to everything that you're saying. There's no asking, there's no true yes, there's no true no. There's just doing the thing that you're expected to do. And when you actually put it in terms like that, that's kind of like slavery. That's kind of like you have you do your bidding. Like you get to do, you know what I mean? Like you ask them to do something, they must do it or they are bad. And and I know that that's really cut and dry, but when you say it like that, it hurts people.
Yeah.
And and it makes you think about things a little differently. And I don't usually put it in terms like that because I like building bridges. I like, easing people into this potential and other way of looking at horses and seeing from their perspective and seeing how maybe they could have choices in their own lives and their own, bodies,
Right.
especially when it comes to riding. Like
Yeah.
you are a as humans with eyes in the front of our faces, we are predators. As a
Mm.
horse, they are a prey animal through and through. And for a prey animal to willingly allow a predator to ride on its back is insane.
That's
A
such a
mountain
great way of
lion
putting that. Yeah.
A mountain lion doesn't just casually go about sitting on horses' backs and having a good time. When a mountain lion is on a horse's back, it is taking it down and killing it. So, again, talking about finding your wild, right? Like
Yeah.
when we're
Yeah.
talking about wild animals here, a horse's instinct is to run away, is to flee, to fight, to freeze, whatever it may be when it comes in contact with a predator or some sort of threat. And a threat can be anything from inner emotions being incongruent with outer movements or outer feelings or expressions, and up to literally your movements threatening the horse. So when you get bigger and you assert your dominance and you show them that you're the boss, that's terrifying to them. What are they going to do in that situation? Are they going to freeze and shut down? Most
Mhm.
horses do that. Not most,
Yeah.
sorry. Many horses that get to the point of being like, shut down will
Right.
do that. They're just like,
Yeah.
okay, like I'm frozen. But
Yeah.
then if you have a horse that fights, then they're crazy. If you have a horse that flees, then they're just, psycho. Whatever words that you want to call it, whatever labels you want to attach to it, we have all of them for the horses. We have the mares who are bitchy, who, we have the I don't know, like we do this in the horse world when we say we love horses, the actions and the words that we say actually don't show that at all.
Yeah. I think that you said that so well. I think that there is
Wow, sorry, that was really harsh, but it came
no,
out.
no. I honestly I feel like it's really true though, and I feel like you put that in such a great context in such a great way that maybe people don't see, like, it's a good lens for people to look at that through because even so, I have a horse too. He's older. His name's Raphael. He's a 17 and a half hand quarter horse paint. Very sassy, but very sweet. And he's just had problems with his legs for a very long time, and he's very arthritic now. He's like 20 something. So like I don't ride him. I just, I'm trying to keep him comfortable in his, like, cuz the vet was like, we're not sure how much longer he has. So but I remember saying to somebody that I kept him at a barn, and like, and I remember this girl saying to me, she's like, you keep a horse that you don't ride on Long Island, like in a barn? Like, she's like, that's crazy. And like, I know a lot of other people that are like, oh, well, I bought this really expensive horse and she can't be ridden anymore. So we got to do something else with her, or something like that. It's such a good point because, like, and I think that extends also to all animals, that what can this animal do for me, what can this animal serve for me, instead of being like connecting like how you're talking about and being like, oh, let's like work past this, like what are they feeling, what are their emotions, like what are how can we work together, I think it's so important to change that narrative, especially in the horse world, because I think that's pretty prevalent, unfortunately.
I hear you. I totally agree. And I think while I feel like it's happening rapidly because that's the people that I surround myself with, I also know the realities that you're speaking to is like that isn't the reality for
Yeah.
everyone. For a lot of people, for majority of the world, that isn't how we see horses. So I I appreciate too of like when we what you were saying about like they serving like what can they do for us? How do they serve us? Do we keep dogs in our house because they do things for us? Do we keep
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, cats definitely aren't serving us, we're serving them, like, that's for
Yeah.
sure. And, like, we keep dogs because we love them, because they bring
Yeah.
us joy, because they give us cuddles at night, because they make us laugh with their silly zoomies. Like, why don't we treat horses in the same way? Why do they
Right.
have to have a purpose in order to be valuable? What a freaking question that is. And like, if you want to be any sort of humanitarian or, somebody that wants to do better in the world for people, and you don't ask yourself that question as well for animals, it's like there is that disconnection a little bit. And I'm not saying to go as far, like, because I know then the argument then steps into like, well, do you eat meat? Are you vegan? Are you this? And it's like, well, what if we can still find a balance? What
Right.
if there is a conversation that can be had that had more nuance than bad or good, than black and white?
Right.
So I think, yeah, it turns into a very larger larger
I
picture
know
when
it
you.
can never, yeah, because then everybody's gonna, sometimes it gets very tit for tat, and like,
Mhm.
it was funny because one of my other guests that I had on, Rachel, Till says she's a filmmaker and she focuses on the wolves actually in Wisconsin, and yeah, it's a great film. I'll send it to you afterwards. But one of the people that she interviewed in the film, um and I totally forget what tribe he's from, but he's a Native American from Wisconsin. And one of the terms that they use when, I guess somebody dies, is it's the same term that if somebody dies and if you kill an animal. So um there is no like overtaking, like you only take what you need. I think that's an important aspect. And like, with the wolf hunts, obviously, it's like people are just killing just to kill. Um, there is no like need for it. Not like when you're deer hunting and you're using every aspect of the animal or something like that. Um, and I think that like also with horses, it's like how can we like, because they're one of our earliest domesticated animals too, so they're pretty intertwined in the human story too. Like how can we, I think that maybe because they're a bigger animal, obviously they're probably more expensive to take care of, that is unfortunate that but I feel like my thing is that like when that girl said that, I'm like, well, honestly, like my horse is very healing. I like just going up there, getting away from my house, hugging him, giving him treats, and like grooming him, and like that brings me back to myself, like just being able to be next to him. And I like, actually, I feel like there were like a couple of people I followed, you included, that I felt a lot. I wasn't always like that. I feel like when I knew that he wasn't going to be able to be ridden again, I had like this really like deep knot in my stomach, like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to ride him again. Like, that makes me so sad. Like, and then like I was so confused about the relationship that we were going to have together. But then, like, I think it's very honorable, like, like your page and like focusing on just like the connection we can have with horses. And like I feel like we have a very full relationship now, and it doesn't need to be riding or anything like that. You can have multiple different ways of connecting that aren't just you like using.
Oh, I love that so much. And that's what a beautiful gift for you too at this chapter in your life, you know?
Yeah.
That is so amazing that you had that time together of, you know, the phases of riding and adventuring and whatever you did. And then now
Yeah.
you become, it's almost like, yeah, it's like, what is our relationship without riding? And, you know, what is our relationship without doing? Can we be? How do we be together? You know?
Yeah.